Hello and welcome back to Serious About Rugby League. Today on the agenda we're going to predict the week's fixtures from Super League. Just to point out, if it says St Helens fan at the bottom, I'm not a St Helens fan. I'm going to burn my skin off after this game is finished. I lost this bet last week. I'm assuming we're going to have a similar bet this week. Bradford versus St Helens.
I'm not wearing that, there's no way. Yeah, it looks like I am. It looks like... No, I won't have to because I'm quite confident with predictions.
Exactly, you're going to win, so it doesn't matter. We'll start with the Thursday night fixture, and this is a massive game. Probably, for me, the hardest to predict of the week. This is the relegation four-pointer as such. London host Hull KR. Hull KR have been given... London have been given a 2-point start on Hull KR. The odds are pretty even though. Yeah. And it's a tough game to call. So, Paul, I'll come to you first. You seem confident in yourself.
Yeah,
who are you backing for this?
False confidence, I'm sure, but misguided. This is, to be fair, this is probably the biggest game this season so far. I think that it's such a. I think far more important for a club to stay up than win the grand final, probably for the money involved. I think that the pitch at London is starting to become a massive factor this year now. I think we've seen teams go there and rest players that are pretty much the same thing that happened with Widnes. I think that's starting to work in London's favour. I think it's starting to get a real advantage at home. I think London can pinch this. I think Hull KR have definitely gone on a bounce since. It's a brilliant appointment, Tony Smith. As I said before, I'm not quite sure why Leeds didn't go for him, to be honest. Just till the end of the season, get them safe. I've got so much respect for the man, but I really think London at home is starting to become a bit of a tough place to go. I think they can pinch this. Fair
enough. And as you said, Hull KR on the back of an agonising loss against Wigan and then a massive win against Warrington. Yeah. London, on the other hand, just got a massive win against Catalans away and then a massive win against St Helens to back that up.
Yeah.
Which way do you see it going?
Well, I think I spoke to you, Paul, on Friday night, and I said I can see London winning in Catalans. I didn't expect them to win so comfortably.
Crazy.
They were terrific, and beating Saints the week before. I think I was speaking to my dad actually, funnily enough, and we were saying about the structure this season. And the reason we went to the Super 8s were every minute matters.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, we've gone away from that, and it's probably even more exciting than it's ever been. Amazing. And every minute really does matter more now than ever before in these regular season games. You can't beat a regular season game having so much riding on it because it just values the competition. And I'm gonna have to just go with Hull KR though. I feel I'm not sure it's rational thinking, but I just feel like, I mean, a lot of people didn't think London would win a game this season. For them to win 3 in a row would be quite something against the opposition they faced as well. And I just feel like Hull KR have beaten Warrington, and I feel Tony Smith's got that know-how, and I think he'll guide them to safety, and I think that they'll win probably by between 2 and 4 points, so I'm very confident.
Very close.
It will be a very close game. As you said, my flatmate literally said the same thing, like London when they're on 6 points, or they won't win another game all season now, they're done. But a win against St Helens and then another win against Catalan away, it's turning.
I think that really shocked people, the Catalan's performance. I do think we've underestimated that pitch. It's given them a real advantage, seems to be.
The next game is on the Friday night. This sees Huddersfield, who are coming off the back of some difficult defeats, but not except for maybe the St Helens game this weekend, not really underperforming, and then Wigan, who are on two on the bounce now. Hull KR away and then Leeds away. They'll go away one more time, and that's away to Huddersfield. Which way do you see this going then?
Well, yeah, the quality of Wigan's victory at Leeds wasn't the best, but I feel like they dug in and they probably controlled the most important parts of the game well. They're probably not thinking about relegation now. They're eyeing the top 5. They might not be playing very well, but almost like a bit of a Wigan way to win ugly as well. And I think Tony Smith will guide Hull KR to safety. I think while they're going up, I think Huddersfield are coming down, and I think Huddersfield are going to be in that relegation battle. And I think maybe a bit of a similar game to the win at Headingley last Friday. I think Wigan will probably win this by about 10 points.
Yeah, you mentioned Huddersfield the other day. I think Wigan. I think the 6 point start in the handicap we're going to give in Huddersfield. Huddersfield are getting 6. I think Wigan will pinch this, but I think 6 is way too much of a start to give Huddersfield. I think this will be close. I think Wigan's last 2 wins have been really close. Obviously, we ended up being 9 against Leeds with that absolutely, truly bizarre try at the end from Tony Clubb, which probably go on any funniest moment reels. We dived 4 yards short of the line. And what was going on there? But I mean, the game was over, so it made no difference. But again, I think we're going to win this by 1-5. I think they seem to be. It's just starting to edge games. I think they've got Greenwood coming back. You were saying. I think Hardick could be back this weekend. I think Farrell is massively important to Wigan. He's had a few games now, so I think Wigan will edge it. I don't think there'll be much in it. So I think that the value possibly Huddersfield getting a 6 start on the handicap, but Wigan just to nick it.
Right, so Huddersfield do have 6 on the handicap. Wigan are 1-2 to win outright. So maybe that's where the money is. The next game is Salford versus Castleford. Salford get a 2-point head start, which seems extraordinarily low, but it is at Salford. Which way do you see it going, Paul?
Salford have been really inconsistent. They can go on a 3-game losing run and then they can beat Warrington away. So they're very, very hard to predict. I think they had a good win against Wakefield, but obviously Wakefield is struggling at the moment. Castleford seem to be. I'm not quite sure what's going on there at the moment. Injuries having a massive effect right across the competition. I've got a funny feeling that Castleford will put in performance, will go down and win this. It's one of them games where I don't suppose any result would surprise you, but I just think that Salford can be a bit inconsistent. Just as you start to think they're going to win a game, they'll get beaten. As you start to think they're on a bad run and they're starting to look downwards, they'll pop up a win from nowhere. So I think they lost against LKR at Magic Weekend as well, which I think is a massive shock. So I just got a funny feeling Castleford will nick this one.
Well, yeah, I think you talk about Salford being inconsistent. They were actually inconsistent in the actual game against Wakefield. They raced ahead. All of a sudden, Wakefield piled on the points, got within, I think, 6 points, and then Salford raced away again at the end. They're such a strange team. And yeah, Castleford struggled a bit recently. The game against Hull, the second half, they fell apart a bit.
Well beaten, weren't they?
Yeah, Hull turned it on, but yeah, Castleford fans are a bit surprised they're still in the top 5. I think they've won 9 and lost 9 this season, so we're talking about inconsistency. Castleford are that as well, and that's reflected with like the bookies' prices. I'm going to go for Salford with home advantage. I think Castleford have got the better forwards. I think Salford have got the better halves, and I feel Hastings and Louis may just get Salford home, but only just.
Yeah, as I said, Salford are on a 2 start. They're 6-5 to win outright. Castleford are 4-6 to win outright. So it is really, really close to call. But it's another split decision, which makes it even more interesting. So we'll move to St Helens versus Leeds. Leeds, obviously, disappointing loss against Wigan, very close game. St Helens rectifying their mistake against London and putting on an absolute show against Huddersfield. I'll come to you, Ben, your beloved Leeds. Can you nick something away at St Helens?
Well, obviously they played each other earlier in the season. It was a lot closer than what people thought. St Helens, I mean, it was 27-22 in the end, and Leeds had quite a few chances. But that game, I think that first half performance at St Helens is Leeds' best attacking performance of the season, and since then they've not replicated it at all. All in the field position against Wigan, just not the know-how to get over the line. Wigan defended well, but I feel like a better team would have got a few tries there and won that game. So. And yeah, St Helens' victory against Huddersfield last week was pretty comfortable, but the one thing you look at is the 2 points conceded. They're not conceding points. No. They were upset against London, but that probably was just a bit of a kick up the backside, wake them up again. And 18 points, favourites in this one, Saints. I think they'll probably win by about 20.
Yeah, Leeds get an 18-point start in this game, which means that an outright Leeds win is 9-2. Do you see him pulling anything shocking off?
And to be honest with you, with the risk of where it's St Helens top, I'm certainly not going to be trying to pick out big shocks like Leeds winning at St Helens. Maybe
don't upset him.
Maybe it's a 5 on it. Maybe it's at 9-2. But no, I think it's always safer to stay safe.
Hey, if I'd have backed London, I might not have been wearing.
Yeah, well, that's very true. Yeah, that was 7-1 as well. Beat St Helens. No, Ben mentioned the St Helens game, the Leeds St Helens game, 3 or 4 games in this season. I think Leeds were probably the better team that day, and I think. I never blame referees. Players that make mistakes, not referees. But I think there's a couple of quite controversial decisions at the end of the game, which could have just nipped it Leeds' favour.
So you're picking Leeds then, yeah?
No, I'm not picking Leeds. I think Leeds will give them a better game than what an 18-point handicap suggests. I think they struggled close to the line against Wigan, but they actually got there. They had chances to beat Wigan. Obviously, Merrin looked like he'd won the game, dropped the ball, obviously rightly given for a knock on. I think they can give Saints a few more problems than what the odds suggest, but I think St Helens will win this. Maybe it's 11 to 15 points, something like that.
So maybe the handicap bet is the bet.
I'll possibly look at Leeds, yeah.
But even alternative handicap to get.
It's just the confidence is so low. If Saints got 12-0 up early on, you'd probably worry. But you back in Leeds plus 18 and Saints win by 40 points. You could look a bit stupid, but I just think they'll do better than what the odds and general consensus thinks they will.
Next is a struggling Wakefield. They get a 16 start away at Warrington, which is that's another one that is a bit of an interesting handicap. Given that Warrington are coming in off the back of a difficult loss against Hull KR, maybe they're thinking there's a bit of a bounce back there. But it's a 16 start for Wakefield. They're 4-1 to win. How do you see it going, Paul?
Wakefield seem in a right lot of trouble now. I think even Chris Chester starting to say that they're in a bit of a relegation battle. Warrington haven't really impressed me in the last few weeks. I have to be honest. I think they're quite fortunate second half in the cup against Hull KR. They lost again there in the league. But Wigan matched them at Magic Weekend. I think that there wasn't anything in that game. I think probably like Blake Austin's fabulous try was probably the difference. Against. You have to fancy Warrington, but they've lost games that they should really have won. I think, as I mentioned, Salford won there. I think I wouldn't really be looking at Wakefield at 4-1. I think Warrington will win the game, but again, I think a 16-point handicap is quite a lot. I mean, that's 3 tries. Could be a bit of weather around at the weekend, but I think Warrington will win the game. But again, I'm not quite sure they'll win by 16 points.
Well, I think we're obviously picking the winners here, and that's how we're deciding this. But if we were going on the handicap, I'd disagree with you. I think Warrington will come back here, and again, like Saints got that kick up the backside. I think that's a kick up the backside Warrington needed. And Wakefield's injuries are terrible. You're talking about relegation. There's still actually 20 to 1 to go down.
Massive.
But I think Wakefield will survive. But I feel like with so many players out, and Warrington's probably had a bit of a reality check
just a little bit
last week, so their training this week would have been on point, and I feel like they'll probably give Wakefield a bit of a beating.
We could go with that as a tiebreaker then, couldn't we?
Yeah.
On the handicap on the game.
I like the idea of handicaps being tiebreakers.
I think so. We can use that as a tiebreak.
The last game is probably the second most difficult to call, and it's at the opposite end of the London OKR. It's Catalans versus Hull, and it's in France. Hull get a 2-star, which is understandable given the result. Earlier in the season, obviously Hull won by a point, but Catalans were obviously in that game right to the last, and Catalan having home field advantage off the back of a couple of difficult defeats. You'd imagine some sort of comeback. Hull, on the other hand, starting to look a lot more consistent. It's going to be a really tough game to call, but Ben, what do you think?
Well, I think it just underlines how crazy this season is. Catalans have just been convincingly beat home by London. Last time they played Hull, they were battered in the Challenge Cup, and yet they're slight favourites for this, which just seems incredible, really. But you're looking at it and you're thinking, how is that possible? But it is, because I'd probably agree with that. I think Catalans are probably reeling a bit with the recent form, and I fancy them to come back here and beat Hull. It's going to be close. I think they played earlier in the season, didn't they, in France, and Hull just edged it, and I feel like it will be a similar sort of game with Catalans just nicking it, and similar to Warrington. I think they will certainly have had a tough week of training after losing by such a scoreline at home to London. So I fancy Catalans to come back and win this, but only just.
Yeah, the game earlier in the season in France between these two, I think Hull edged it by a point. I think a lot of emphasis was made on quite a few controversial decisions by the video referee. I think normally people seem to think that Catalan get a lot of decisions at home. Obviously they didn't that day, but I think a lot of people forget about that game is that Hull's injury crisis was really bad at that time of the year. They went there with, I think they had a few young lads in the team. So to even push Catalan close, regardless of winning the game or not, to get that close to Catalans, I think it was quite a performance. They seem to be on a bit of a run, Hull, at the minute. I think Lee Radford did it 2 years ago in the Challenge Cup and the year before that. He seems to be managing his squad But there's now like a 4-week gap between now and the rest of the and when they come back, play Warrington in the semi-finals. I think I would imagine Hull will be targeting this time of the year when he can put his full team out, they can go for it, and maybe he's looked to rest players towards the middle of July as they get near the game at Bolton. So I think I've been really disappointed with Catalans. I have to be brutally honest with you. I thought the cup game at Hull, they were terrible. I think to get beaten, I mean, London are playing really well, and it's great to see them doing well, and a massive bonus for the league. But that was a shocker of a performance, if I'm brutally honest. To get beat like that of a team that can be limited like London can be. And they are. It's just the inconsistency of the Catalans. We know that they can. I think we know they can win 40-0 one week, and then the next week they can get beat by the same score. But I've got a funny feeling that Hull are going to target these next few games when they've got such a gap now between now and the semi-final. I think Hull can win this by 6 to 10 points.
Fair enough, which means that there won't be a tie break necessary because there are 3 games that split the two here.
One of them could be a draw.
Could be a draw, unlikely with the goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is these guys' prediction. Please do leave your predictions in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for all the latest news and videos. We'll see you next time.